Robert Wessels, thanks for coming today. I really appreciate it. We want to talk a little bit about your background and why you got into the race for governor. You were once elected to the South Paris Select Board. You no longer serve in that role, but now you're running for governor. I think you were one of the first candidates to get in the race, I think in 2024. Your background is in business and retail management. How are those skills transfer to running the largest bureaucracy of the state?
Yeah, how does that come about, right? Well, thank you again, first of all, for having me. Love to have this conversation. And yes, I was a selectman for 4 years in the town of Paris, and one of those I was a chair. And so that's the limit of my being, I'm not a politician. And at the same time, it does give a good base for understanding how local elections work and, as you said, the bureaucracy of Maine and the impact that a governor and Augusta can have on a local town. And so I do think that really does play into how well I would do as governor, bringing that history with me. How does somebody go from retail management to governor? The reality is that we need a governor that is in touch with reality of everyday Mainers. And I really, I put that, to your point, I did launch my campaign back in 2023, July of 2023 officially. And I did it so early because I don't have name recognition. And I had it in the negative column of the fact I don't have the political experience and I'm just retail management. And very quickly, in talking to hundreds and hundreds of Mainers early on, everybody's like, oh yeah, well, no, that's a good thing. And so the reality is I shifted that over to the positive column because when my electricity bill goes up, I feel it, right? When my property taxes go up, I have to recalculate my budget. I am in touch with what is going on with everyday Mainers across the state. And at the same time, my MBA and 20 plus years of retail management have certainly prepared me for dealing with people. You do that every day in retail. And I love the business aspect of it. And the reality is you use bureaucracy, it's 100% true. But at the same time, it's a business. And before everybody sends in mail and corrects me, the reality is businesses go for profit. And for me, the profit of the state would be money back in taxpayers' money and pockets. And so, again, if I'm successful in running the state the way it needs to be run, our budgets will go down, taxes will go down, and businesses and families in Maine will be able to thrive.
I want to get to those initiatives or those priorities in just a minute. I do want to, just because you are a relative newcomer, I want to talk a little bit about what inspired you to get into the race. I mean, like you said, I understand that you wanted to get in early because not that many people know who you were at the time, and I'm sure that's changed since you've been running since 2023. But was there anything in particular that inspired you to run? Was it your experience on the select board, or was there a particular issue that really inspired you to get on the ticket so early?
Yeah, so I guess if you go back to 2022, ultimately I was looking at the state and I was just not happy with I was fed up, quite honestly, with the direction that we're going as a state, in particular Janet Mills and the way she was running the state. And then our school district, SAD 17 in Oxford Hills, was trying to pass a policy that would allow the school to transition kids without telling the parents, and as far as transgender and stuff like that. And again, as a parent, I was appalled by that, and I believe parents need to have that role and need to know what's going on in their kids' lives. And so my wife, and hundreds of other parents stood up and spoke up and said, absolutely not, we can't do this. To the school board's credit, they did not pass the policy. And I looked at my wife at that point and said, but the problem is it's coming from Augusta and the Department of Education and Governor, and we need to fix that. And I'm one of those people who, when I see a problem and I see that I have the skills necessary to do it, I can't just sit idly by and go, oh, I hope somebody does that. I was also smart enough to say, I don't have name recognition, I don't have money, but I did have time. And so I said, a few months later I came to my wife and I said, so I'm thinking about running for governor. And I thought that was the end of the campaign, but she looks at me and she goes, okay. I was like, all right, we just crossed the biggest hurdle.
Are your kids in school? Are they in public school?
So my kids, 2 have graduated. My kids are 17, 19, and 21.
Okay.
And no, we've homeschooled all 3 of them. And if you do the math, that was quite a while ago. That was not a political decision. My wife is a certified teacher and just passionate about education and wanted to homeschool them. So I said, all right, let's do it.
How does that experience homeschooling your children, how does that influence your view of education policy, and how would it affect your implementation of policies as an elected governor? I mean, obviously, we have a charter school system in this state alongside a public school system. Certainly homeschooling is allowed, obviously. But what policies would you push, given your own experience with homeschooling and maybe broader critiques of the educational system in the state?
Yeah, and so that's a big part of my platform. You're 100% correct, because the reality is I get to see firsthand the successes of what it looks like to, what education can look like. And the amazing results that I have seen with all 3 of my children, and then when I look at our results in the public school, the reality is that as of the 2024 report, 74% of our 4th graders are not proficient at reading at the level that they need to be at. And math isn't much better. 67% of our 4th graders are not proficient at math. And so I'm looking from a business perspective, somebody who's hired these people that are graduating, and some of them can't read. And again, how are you to be successful in life if you can't read and you can't do math? And so to me, again, I'm not blaming the students. I'm looking and saying we as a society have failed these kids, and so we have to change that. And I believe we need somebody from the outside, an outsider's perspective, who is willing to call a spade and say, listen, we don't have to do things the way we've always done it. Let's change things. Specifically for your question, I'm a big fan of school choice. However, I will say not your traditional voucher system, because I do not like the strings that are attached to government money. As a homeschooler, I wouldn't take it because I don't need the government saying, hey, you can't teach this, or you have to teach it this way. And so, but if we do a tax credit system, the government is not giving you money, you're just not giving the government your money. And that removes those strings and allows people to be able to choose. If our purpose with education is to get our young people ready for life after school, which I think we can all agree on, then why should it matter whether they do that successfully through a public school, charter school, homeschool, private school? Like, it shouldn't. Right. Again, our goal is to get them through to life successfully, so they're ready, and let's do that.
Let's shift gears a little bit to talk about, you mentioned taxes and spending. I know that's a huge thing that Republican candidates in particular are talking about. A lot of vows to cut the state budget and also at the same time cut taxes. There's some tension there between those 2 objectives. How do you do it? And what is your objective? I mean, do you want to eliminate the income tax, or do you want to just cut it slightly, or what's the ultimate goal, do you think?
So I've been campaigning for 2.5 years, thousands of conversations, right? And probably my estimate is 80% of the conversations end up going to something called personal economics. It's kind of the ball that I put everything in. Taxes is certainly part of that. I don't see the tension between cutting the budget and cutting taxes, because the reality is if you cut the budget, you then can cut taxes if you want to, right? And so yes, we need to cut the budget. It's grown by $4.4 billion. That's before they're just passing making it bigger right now. And so we don't know exactly where that will end, but $4.4 billion is huge. It was $7 billion before she took over. And so to be approaching $12 billion is just a monumental increase. And everyday Mainers are feeling that. Businesses are feeling that. Towns are feeling that. Everywhere I go, I hear taxes, taxes, taxes. And the reality is Maine is in competition, as a state, is in competition with every other state. And what I mean by that is if our taxes, income taxes, property taxes are significantly higher than other states, people are mobile these days. Mm-hmm. Businesses will choose not to come and base their business in the state of Maine. Families will choose to leave or not come to Maine because their dollar stretches further elsewhere.
One last question.
Yeah.
I think we're running out of time, but I know that affordability is a huge issue for both Democrats running for the governor and also Republicans. Yeah. Divergent views in how to address that.
Agreed.
What's yours?
So mine is small government. We need to get the government out of things. We have all kinds of ridiculous regulations, about 135,000 regulations. Not all of them bad, but the reality is those regulations add cost to doing business. They add cost to families. They add to our taxes. They add to everyday life for everyday Mainers. And so we need to reduce that, cut the red tape, and really encourage businesses to grow and to come to Maine so those businesses can be taxed and not you and I, and we can thrive again.
Like, one question I want to ask you is, obviously there are 8 Republican candidates running. A lot of them are running on their business background or experience in business. What makes you stand out from the rest of the field?
Yeah, and again, I think that tells you where we are as a state, that there's 8 of us, mostly from the business background, or many from the business background, who are looking at our state and saying we can do better, right? And so it also makes me one of 8. And so what sets me aside, I believe, is the fact that I am not an elite. I am a true outsider. Very rarely do you have somebody who is an everyday person who is not politically elite, not a financial elite. I was not a CEO. I'm in touch with everyday Mainers and where they're at. And again, I think that is a strength that I bring to it, while also having the ability to run a business and do things financially and have that outside perspective.
Understood. What about just the fundamentals of running a campaign and the cost associated with that? How are you? Do you think if you were to win the nomination, would you be able to garner the financial support? To launch, to wage a campaign against what would probably be a well-funded Democratic challenger or opponent?
Yeah, and Republicans traditionally have been outspent by Democrats, right? The reality is I have not raised the most support, but I will tell you that I have done an amazing job working with the money that I've had. And the fact that one of my opponents has raised over $1 million, has spent over $700,000, and I'm 1% behind him in the last poll. I've spent $24,000 to get there, and 2.5 years. And so I have an amazing supportive volunteer team. I was the first one out of both parties to get on the ballot, and I did that 100% with volunteers. And so I may not be able to raise as much money as some of my counterparts, but I don't need to. I will absolutely be able to raise plenty of money in the general election when it goes from 8 candidates to 1, and people will be able to get behind me. But the reality is I don't need to raise as much. I have the financial and the ability to stretch a dollar far more than anybody else has, and we've been extremely successful with the 24,000.
Robert Wessels, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.